I want to talk about homeschooling for a little bit, actually, because a lot of people who listen to this podcast are either homeschooling actively or they're homeschooling curious. What, how would you advise the parent who is beginning their homeschool journey or already in it? Because I think there's like, I think parents both underestimate their own capacity to deliver a phenomenal education to their kids, and yet at the same time don't necessarily know where to look to find the resources, the frameworks, the information that they need to construct a good educational framework for their kids. Like, it is both easier and harder, I think, than parents necessarily think it is when they're getting started. What do you think is important for a parent to do in order for them to be able to like feel like they are adequately structuring a framework for their kids where they can like trust their own ability to deliver resources, but they can trust that their kid is getting the developmentally appropriate things that they need to be learning at a second grade, third grade, fifth grade level, wherever their kid's at?
Yeah, I mean, the way that I would put that, the kind of paradox that you were like, in some ways it's easier, in some ways it's harder than you think, is, and this is my first advice to any homeschooling family, is that it is possible for almost any parent to do better than what most schools around them have to offer for their child.
Teachers unions on Twitter everywhere are horrified by that comment and are angrily retweeting right now with their pushback to that.
So this will ameliorate some of their criticisms. But it's work. It's work. You got to learn how to be a teacher, and it's not easy. Even if you've just got one child, even if it's your child who you know really well, it's not easy. And so it's possible, but it's work, and it's work that's doable. Like, it's not like, oh, it's work. You're going to stress, you're going to suffer. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, your expectation should be like, this is a real project. Like, if you're a parent thinking about homeschooling, think back to your first child when they were born, and like, you had to learn everything, and you were looking up like sleep training and is it good or bad, and vaccination schedules and diapering, and trying to figure out like breast milk versus formula, and like your child starts to make a mess and you're trying to figure out how to talk to your child about it, and like all of that, like that whole kind of like everything is new and I've got to figure everything out myself and I've got to take it really seriously. It's like that, except now they're like 6 or 5 or 8 or however old they are. I think so it's doable, but it's work. And there's a reason why teachers are like, what, you think you can do my job? Like, I have expertise. Teachers do have some expertise that you don't necessarily naturally have as a parent. So just go in with that mindset. I would say, I talk to homeschooling parents a lot. I would encourage you to be open-minded and ambitious about what the homeschooling experience looks like. I think here's the natural dynamic. You think, I'm going to create this awesome personalized experience that my son or daughter is going to love. And then like 6 months into it, they're like, oh, they don't like it when I make them do math any more than they liked it when their elementary school teacher made them do math. And you find yourself in power struggles with your child about what to do, what, when, and you're negotiating everything, and it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. That is, you are confronting the problem of education, which is a real problem. Like, it's a real problem, like, in the nature of learning and instruction, and it's not something that is just an artifact of the public school system or something like that. And you can solve it. But you do need to think a little bit progressively, not in the sense of you have to do exactly what the progressive educators did or you have to be unstructured, but you have to think that something new and better and different is possible. Something more individualized, something where your child has more choice, something where the structures look very different from how they looked. I'm going to plug my own company here. We have a homeschooling curriculum, Guidepost at Home. So our schools are called Guidepost schools, and we have a Guidepost at Home curriculum that's for parents to be educators in their own home. The elementary curriculum is great. You can use it. We will ship elementary Montessori materials to your house. And then you ship them back when you're done. There's like a library that you can use. We help you, we coach you, we train you. There's all sorts of things that you can do. And And if you're using other curriculum other than ours, even if you're using ours, just have ongoing judgment about it. Like, it's tricky to figure out. Even teachers struggle with this. It's not like there's mandated curriculum that every teacher uses. Teachers are largely free to pick out their own curriculum, and they have to adjust based on what works. And I mean, the typical homes. I was talking to one mom on the playground the other day who was like, got 5 kids at home, and she's doing Singapore curriculum, Singapore math for math. And I'm like, that's pretty good, like, especially if you supplement it with some other things. And she's doing, what is it called? Not truth, beauty, and goodness and beauty. There's a literature curriculum called goodness and beauty for literature and some of the other humanities. I'm like, yeah, that one's less good, but for what she wanted, maybe it's good. She was kind of into it for the Christian values. You got to judge, like, is this achieving the effects that I need it to? And are my children engaged by it? And if not, pivot.
I think the point that you just made about taking a progressive mentality to this is important to re-emphasize, because I think this is one of the places that people leave so much value on the table when they start homeschooling, is they're just kind of, the emphasis is on both home and also schooling. So they're taking what's happening in the schools and they're bringing it home. And they're like, I'm going to administer this. I'm going to have the hands-on touch to be able to sort of customize the details of this to fit either the ideological values that my family has or the specific developmental or learning needs that my child has. So we can tweak the details to make it a better fit for our kids. And we're going to do it at home where they don't have to be in the school environment that for whatever reason isn't a good fit for them. Maybe they're getting bullied. Maybe it's not like a good cultural fit, but it's still trying to replicate school at home. And I've seen like there's a whole spectrum of how people homeschool, starting with, we're going to have this sort of like timers and bells structure that we have in school. We're just going to replicate that at home. It's like, okay, it's 9:15, so it's time to do English. And then at 10:25, we're going to do math. And it's like very regimented. And then, the spectrum goes all the way to unschooling, which we can touch on in a minute, because I know you have thoughts about that too. But I think the progressive mentality is so important for parents to bring into this. It's like, no, you're starting with a blank slate and you can make this better than school. You don't have to replicate the broken system and just incrementally improve it by getting rid of the couple of details that you didn't like that were happening in public school. You can truly make this a different experience for your children, which is what my parents did.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with all of that. And I think it's not that clear in the debates about homeschool that what homeschooling is. Like, homeschooling is it's education at home. Mm-hmm. And schooling is education at school. And that's a pretty thin, both of those things are, what happens in school? What happens at home? Like, those concepts are empty with respect to that. Like, the Montessori school is very different than the Dalton Lab school, is very different than, like a classical Catholic school is very different than a traditional public school. It's very different. And homeschooling structures are also very different. Like, homeschooling it's a place, it's not a methodology. And it's amenable to different methodologies. It's amenable to much more personalization and customization. It's amenable to more tutorial style education. But like, even within that, what curriculum are you using? Like, how are you structuring your day? What topics are you picking as important? Like, are you doing history? Are you doing social studies? Like, those are different approaches to the same rough set of topics. Are you doing either of those? Are you doing neither? Are you letting your child kind of choose what they're interested in? Are you saying, like, I know some homeschooling parents who the approach that they took with their children is every day you're going to do math. This is the mandatory thing. This is the school thing. I'm going to make you do math for a certain amount of time a day. And everything else is going to be customized and interest-based and kind of, up to the child in a certain way. The rest was very unstructured. I don't like that structure, but like that, I think you should think about what the possibilities are for kind of where you're putting the pressure and the structure and how you're doing it. I think the default is going to be, maybe not for every family, but for a lot of families, the default is going to be you're doing a school curriculum at home in a school way with worksheets and a schedule and tests, and that's what you're doing.